Hello and welcome to Everybody Pulls the Tarp. I'm your host, Andrew Moses. With me today, I have a very special guest, Bob Christofferson. And for my audience, Bob is the recently retired Seattle Mariners head groundskeeper after a 20-year run with the Seattle Mariners, keeping that field as beautiful as it always is. Bob joins us here on Everybody Pulls the Tarp. Welcome, Bob.
Oh, thanks, Andrew, for having me. Look forward to our time together.
It's a great thrill to have you. And let me say, Bob, obviously this show is called Everybody Pulls the Tarp, and it's really built around a philosophy that I developed when I was working as an intern in minor league baseball and learned all about pulling the tarp. But this is the first time that I have a somebody who really knows what it's like to pull the tarp for a long, long time.
You know what? I know what it's like to chase after interns to get them to help you pull the tarp. I've in Tacoma. I mean, we'd pull the tarps 100 times in a season, 10 times in a day. I mean, I remember one time pulling it with just 4 people. I cut my tarp in half because I just didn't have the crew and the staff to deal with it. So we pulled 2 tarps on, and yeah, I've had my share of tarps.
Well, this
They're character builders.
They're character builders. On this show, I interview leaders from all walks of life, business, sports, media, about a philosophy that I have that great teams and great organizations are powered by individuals who contribute far beyond the boundaries of their job description. And I learned this philosophy, like I said, on my first day as a front office intern in the minor leagues, when I thought I was going to do front office work, and they told me to pack an old set of clothes for the next day and come to the ballpark ready to help pull the tarp on and off the field. And they told me all about how minor league grounds crews are smaller than big league grounds crews, and you have seen it all from Tacoma to Seattle with the big league club. And I'm really, really excited, Bob, to dig into some of this with you. So I guess where I want to start is recently you announced your retirement just a couple weeks ago from the Mariners after a wonderful 20-year run, and you announced it on Twitter. And former pitcher C.J. Nitkowski, I want to make sure I get this all right, so I want to read here. He responded to you, and I think this is really special. Former Major League pitcher C.J. Nitkowski, he tweeted back at you, "I never knew your name, Bob, but I knew your work. In my 19 years playing the game all over the world, when people ask me who had the best mound in the game, my answer is always the same: Seattle. Congratulations on retirement and a job well done." What did that mean when you saw that message from C.J. Nitkowski?
I was a little bit shocked. I was a little bit in awe of all the responses that I've seen, and it makes you feel good. I mean, I don't know. I know pitchers liked pitching on our mound. I was a pitcher when I was younger and a junk ball pitcher, so it wasn't all that good. But I told our players that the field was their office and I was their janitor, and it's my responsibility to make sure that what's under your feet, I've taken care of, and you don't have to think about it. And I think that's a big part of being a groundskeeper, is being able to recognize you can tailor each position for the given player on a given night. And a lot of guys didn't understand that, especially guys coming up and hadn't had it at the catered to pitchers, especially the most important piece of real estate on a field. So it was fun to do those kind of things. It was fun to make the field the best you could make it on a given night. It may not be the best field every night, the same best field, but it's the best you could make it on that night. There's a lot of variables that go into it. First day of a homestand, last day of a homestand. Was it a 10-day homestand? What was the weather like? For us in Seattle, do we have the roof on for the entire time, or did the grass get a chance to breathe or see the light of day and all that kind of stuff? So they're all kind of challenges.
So you talk about these challenges and all the different conditions, but fans, I'm as big a baseball fan as anybody, and I've been to many ballparks, major league, minor league, spring training facilities, and I think as a fan, you get to the ballpark and you just take for granted, especially in the big leagues, that the field is going to be beautiful. The stadium's going to look like a cathedral. But so much goes into it for you and your crew, and it's a year-round effort. Maybe just for the audience, talk a little bit. I'm sure you could talk all day, but a little bit about some of the things that people might not realize that go into making that field look so beautiful.
Well, there are a lot of variables, and one of the biggest one, especially in today's world, is the extra events. But I think if there's one thing that people don't realize is the number of extra events that go on a baseball field. And I always had a goal of doing the events, doing them to the best of my ability, but make sure that the players didn't know that the event was had been on the field. And a lot of times lately with a lot of rehab players that stay behind and they couldn't believe how many events we have. It's just, concerts in a 2-day turnaround or, all kinds of things. So it was work. It was, but you know what? For 40 years, I never went to work. I just went to play. It was just, you just go and do, and it's a lot of hours. You roll up your sleeves, you throw your watch away. The good thing about baseball is baseball's about family. And, I was able to raise my kids younger in Tacoma. It might have been a little more difficult had my kids been young in Seattle, because I'd take my kids to the ballpark when they were 3-4 years old and put them on the field and lock the gate, and I'd mow the lawn or do whatever, and the kids would play. I knew they were on the field somewhere, whether they were in the dugout or wherever. And, so that's fun. And I think baseball is family, and it's a great environment to raise your children. But they learn to. You're always the ballparks. It's not the number one thing in your life, but you're always there, and so you miss a lot of things. I was able to coach my kids in baseball, and I juggled that act. I don't think I could have done it if I was in Seattle at that time. I remember when the kids were real little, bringing coaching a team, and I'd call the parents up and say, "Hey, we're going to practice at Cheney Stadium tonight," and they go, I think that. If it me and a coach had called me up, I'd have said, "Oh my goodness!" These people said, "Why do I have to drive that far?" I said, "Well, because this is where I work, and I got a lot of work still to do, and I can't drive all the way to a practice field. Besides, this is the best field those kids are going to play on." So I'd take them into the clubhouse and let them sit down and have a pop and gum and it's just a little pep talk. I don't think those kids, I run into those. They're not kids anymore. They're young adults. And I think it was a good environment for them. I think it was a good experience. So I guess if there's, it's family. And you get your crew becomes part of your family. It's not, my crew, it wasn't a crew. They were my friends. And they worked very hard. They were dedicated. Some of them weren't, especially the game people, they weren't, knowledgeable groundskeepers, but they did their part. They played their role and they understood it. And it's the end result. For us, game time was 7:10. So at 7:10, when the umpires and the coaches go out to home plate, that's when we admire our work. That's when you say, okay, here's the stamp. We did it. Now they got to play on it.
So you talk about baseball being a place for family. Baseball is also a daily grind, and for the players, there's the season and there's spring training and there's the off season work. I think a lot of people believe that the groundskeeper's work is just right before the season and during the season, but I know it's a year round gig. So maybe talk a little bit about what goes into the work you do in the off season specifically to keep the field ready.
It's 365 days, 24/7. You always think about the field, and in the Northwest, we don't go into dormancy, so you're mowing the field more than people probably think. You're just tending into it. And I can feel, or I could. I actually the other day I still have a camera, and I have a camera that's on the field, and I watched it from my office, and I watched it from my home, and I was looking at it the other day, and I for the first time I realized that weight on my shoulder wasn't there. And there's a lot of it's pressure. Some of it is self-induced. Most of it is in Seattle, it was $1 million ball players and $1 million ball players from the other teams coming in. So there is a certain amount of stress. But I tried to make it fun. I tried to make it, it was never about me, and it never was, because it's all about relationships. I have vendors, fertilizer rep, your mower reps, your dirt reps, all these people, and they're part of your life. And the players are part of your life. Coaches, a lot of coaches that were players in the Coast League when I was in Tacoma. So now they come up as coaches, and people, you go out and give a hug to a visiting player. Well, why do you give that's the enemy. Well, they were my friends, and they were people that I knew, umpires, coaches, managers. They're all people. And for on a major league level, I have great relationships with all 29 other head groundskeepers. We talk about a lot of things. And mostly what we talk about is the extra event, how you deal with the extra event, how you got into it and out of it, without, losing your head. And so it's always good when you have a little bit of knowledge of what's coming at you, from a concert, road show, to anything that you have on the field.
So it sounds like you're.
Did I answer your question? I don't know if I did.
You sure did, Bob. And it sounds like you continue to share experiences and collaborate with these other head groundskeepers to continuously learn, continuously get better. Just like the players work and train, and the coaches work to get better. I've heard you talk about the difference between a good groundskeeper and a great groundskeeper. What is the difference between a good groundskeeper and a great groundskeeper?
I don't know. I think you have to protect your field. You're the guy. You're the last line of defense. The players are there to play the game, and you're there to make the field the best it can be for them. But you're also there to make the field aesthetically pleasing to the fan, both in the stadium and in Major League Baseball. They're always on TV. So you've got those. You're just juggling a lot of things. And I guess the biggest thing I tried to do is have my crew take pride. If they took pride and felt like they were an integral part of it, then they made a difference. And ultimately, then we made a difference.
When you talk about making that difference, were there ever moments that stand out more than others, where you just stood back and you said, "Wow, look what we accomplished here," or "I never thought we would get this done in time"? Maybe it's one of these special events or an all-star game. Was there a moment that stands out for you, of particular pride?
Well, we did a turnaround on, we had not had a concert, and I'm not even sure what year it was, but I think we had Paul McCartney, and I think it was 2015. It was the first concert. And, we were talking, and concerts come when they're available, not when you're available. And so they came to me and they said, "Bob, we're going to have this concert, and we're going to play baseball on the field 48 hours later." And I go, "Oh my," and I agreed to it. And a few hours later, I got a call from the head groundskeeper in San Diego, and he said, "Bob, I just told our front office that we couldn't turn a field around in 48 hours." And they said, "Well, they're doing it in Seattle." And I said, "Hey, listen, I'm not trying to make you look bad, but we needed to be able to prove that we could put a concert on in that ballpark, and that was the parameters that were put up against us. I think it's going to be difficult. I think that turnaround I know I was physically working 22 out of 24 hours after the concert was over. And, I had a lot of good people around me, and you try to organize your crew so they're not all tired, and they all come in there at the time when you need them. And it's an orchestration. I think everything is an orchestration. When I got to Safeco, you know, there was no game sheet. There was no plan. And I asked the assistant that was there, I said, how do these guys know where to go? He says, oh, they just do it. I said, well, would you mind if I put a plan together so I know what they're doing? So I did. And, anytime you put something down on paper, you better not forget anything. So it evolved within a couple of years. My game crew, they couldn't. That's the first thing they did. I posted one in my office. I posted one in their locker. And I told them, I said, you don't realize how many people are watching you. And it's curiosity. It's they maybe wish they were out there on the field, but act like you know what you're doing when you're out there, and eventually you will know what you're doing. So I think that if you don't, and I've told people when I interviewed them for jobs, I said, if after a while you're not taking pride in being part of this crew, then you're probably not the right person to be on this crew. And we didn't have a lot of turnover in Seattle in my 20 years. I've got people that came with me from Tacoma.
Wow.
And they're still with me. And hopefully, it was tough talking to them about a few of them came over to my house a couple of days ago. And it was sad. I've had a lot of tears and tough conversations, but I'm proud of not what I accomplished, but what we accomplished.
What I'm sure you are, and you should be, Bob. And the players, some of the things I've learned about the way you would interact with the ball players on the Mariners to make sure that the field was manicured and tailored in a way that suited their abilities and their desires is really, really fascinating. One in particular, and I want to talk about a few of them, but one in particular is Mike Cameron. So yeah. Mike Cameron, a great outfielder, a good hitter, but really, really a strong defensive guy. As I understand it, he comes to you and he tells you that the way you're mowing the lawn is making the ball snake, and it's making it trickier for him to pick up off the ground. So, right. so what? How do you respond to that?
Well, I never thought anything that a ball player came to me was criticism. It's just us getting to a better point for them to succeed in their business. So it was never criticism, and Mike didn't bring it to me as criticism. He says, is there anything you could do? So I got together with my assistant, Tim Wilson, and Leo Liebert, and I said, Mike's got a pretty good idea, but if he's playing center field and we're going to do it for him, we should do it for the left fielder and the right fielder too, which is what we ended up doing. It's not my favorite mow pattern. My favorite mow pattern aesthetically is a checkerboard pattern, but as you get into June in Seattle, the grass starts to thicken up, and the ball will follow the blade, the grain of the grass. And when he's trying to throw a guy out at the plate and he's trying to charge a ball, if it's moving 3 feet on him, he's going to go at it tentatively. So I took pride in player success. I also took the blame sometimes for their mistakes, and it's never their fault. So I mean,
they blame you for errors.
Oh yeah, I didn't. There was a term, and I used to obviously watch the game from my office, but I would get very angry, maybe throw things at the TV when a reporter, a TV analyst would say that was a bad hop. I said, it wasn't a bad hop. The ball did exactly what it was supposed to do. Look at the spin. Look at this. It wasn't a bad hop. Might have been a bad play by the fielder, but wasn't a bad hop. But that's just, as long as I was in my office and my guys, I'd have 2 people sitting right as close to home plate as you could next to the dugout. And I wouldn't sit out there because I didn't want the TV cameras to pan on me when a player missed a ball or something happened. And they would pan on me. They wouldn't pan on my other guys. So they'd always run in. Was that a bad hop? I said, shut up. It's never a bad hop.
The ball does what it's supposed to
Ball
do.
did what it was supposed to do.
Right.
So
So let's talk about the pitcher's mound for a second. That, you talk about in the player's office. That is the pitcher's office. And Felix Hernandez, as I understand it, he wanted he wanted by home plate, he wanted wetter the dirt to be more wet,
real soft.
real soft.
Because he was a sinker ball pitcher, and the ball comes off the bat, and the first thing it does is hit that soft dirt and slows it down. So that's a good thing. That's a good thing for our pitchers. You have infielders the same way. I mean, in my opinion, the really, really good infielders loved the field wet, wetter than you would think you would want it. And analysts wouldn't understand why we were making the field wet. Well, it's because that's what the player wants, and it's not about me. I remember David Bell was traded from Seattle to Philadelphia, and the Philadelphia groundskeeper called me up and he said, "Bob, I can't make this guy happy." And I said, "Well, this is what you should do. You wet the field down the maximum what you think, and then double that, and then he'll be happy."
Wow.
And so, it wasn't. It's a plan to get to the first pitch. Everything is, and as soon as the last pitch of the last game, the focus is on the next game. The focus right from that moment on. Are we going to water the outfield? In Seattle, was the roof on? And a lot of times the roof was on for 8-day homestand, pouring down rain outside. I'd have to put a little sticky note on my desk, say, make sure you water the field, because it wasn't getting the natural rain that everybody else was seeing. So, people would say, "Why are you watering? It's raining." I said, "Well, it's not raining in here." You'd go from as soon as that last out, you're thinking about the next game, whether it's the next day or the team's getting on the road and now we got to make some grass repairs. That's, again, you talk about relationships. I'd call my sod guy up on a Sunday afternoon in the middle of the game and I say, "Hey, can you bring me 3 rolls of sod tomorrow?" And he said, "Absolutely." He never let me down. It was always there.
And that's because of relationship.
I used to ask all my vendors, "You come walk on this field as much as you want, because I want your perspective on it. I'm on it too much. So I'm overly critical of myself, and you're going to see something that I don't." We used to have a program. We did have a program called the Guest Groundskeepers, and it was charities that they had an opportunity to be on the grounds crew for the night. And I loved that because their initial reaction was really always fun to watch. And we never know who the person was until they walked through the door. We didn't know. We had 75-year-old ladies and the lowest age we would let was 16, and we fudged that a little bit because sometimes a parent would buy it at an auction and they were spending, I think the highest we ever had was $7,000. We raised over $1.1 million over my time for charities.
Amazing.
And the people had a great experience, but they didn't realize what they were giving us, me and my crew. Just that perspective of the field that we didn't really take it for granted, but maybe we did. Because you're just doing your job, and you can't step back and admire it because you're in the middle of it.
So, Bob, they call you the Sodfather, and what's next for the Sodfather?
What's next? Well, what I'd like to do, and I've talked to some of the vendor people nationally, that I'd like to try and help the little leagues in the Pacific Northwest, the small baseball fields, all the way to the high school and college fields, and everything from just give them some advice to a complete renovation. And I've got people that can help me do that, or I can just go do a one-on-one consultant and just say, "This is what I would do." And a lot of them, they don't have that perspective from fertilizing the field to maybe making the dirt a little bit better. We did a field in February. It's probably the funnest thing I've done. It was in Eastern Washington on an Indian reservation at a high school, and it was for girls fast pitch. And I took 3 of my guys, and we went over there, and one of our vendors donated a ton of dirt, and we rebuilt the pitcher's mound and home plate and put new base anchors in and new bases. And I gave them first base was a dual base that they have, and we put that in, and then I gave them a Mariner base for second and third. But the girls were all there all day long, off and on between classes, and the excitement that they had. I mean, when I got there, the pitchers the pitcher was pitching in a hole that was 8-10 inches deep, and I said, how do you throw? I said, I'd break my ankle. So then we got it done, and I said, get up here, you're the one that's going to pitch on it, so get up here. And she did a practice pitch, and the smile on her face, and we took pictures with the girls, and that's kind of what I'd like to experience. I think that's a fun thing. I think it'd be rewarding for me and helpful to youth baseball.
That would be a phenomenal way to give back, Bob. You've got so much to give, and maybe one day you could just come help me in my yard, because
there you go. Hey, my yard looks better than it's ever looked.
I bet.
And that's interesting.
It's been such a pleasure having you on this show, Bob. The birthplace of everybody pulls the Tarp is minor league baseball, and the inspiration that working alongside the grounds crew gave me. And it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. Congratulations on your retirement, all of the amazing work. And I must say, as a baseball fan, for all the baseball fans out there, we tune in every day on TV. We show up to the ballpark with our family, and it is breathtaking when you open your eyes and you see a major league ballpark. So thank you for all that you and your team have done all these years.
Well, thank you. This has been a pleasure to sit and talk with you. Thank you very much.